Hello guys, welcome to my new video, and this is another Mistweaver video. He's gone crazy. He's gone crazy, man. He's loving the Mistweaver. Either way, guys, I've been playing a lot of Mistweaver. If you have been checking my Twitch streams or whatever, you probably have noticed at least for the last 3 days or last week, I've been leveling my Mistweaver and doing as many Mythic Plus keystones as possible, trying to get KSM with my healer. I am fully aware that the community perception of Mistweavers is atrocious, and anyone who's that under-geared is never going to get invited. So I got the help of 2 other viewers. Viewers who are not over-geared, viewers who needed KSM themselves, and we decided to go on this journey of trying to get the Keystone Season 1 Masters achievement for all of us. Again, this was something that I tried to do and tried to create a most reasonable experience that a lot of other people might go through. So we had to poke 2 other DPSs. 2 other DPSs might have, some of them might have been overgeared, some of them might have been, relatively equal. We did end up going with a relative meta comp a lot of the times with the balancers and things like that. But generally speaking, this is my documentation, a video documentation of my experiences when finding or playing an off-meta healer like Mistweaver. And honestly, I did this for a single reason. So many people have talked to me about how bad Mistweaver is. Like, legitimately during the runs or streams, there were multiple people coming in and unironically saying, oh hey, Mistweaver is able to do plus 15? Or like, hey, Mistweaver is not completely dog shit. Things like that. And honestly, it kind of baffles me because my findings in terms of how I felt about Mistweaver were really overly positive, and we're gonna talk about multiple different things in terms of the bad things, the mana consumption, the community perception, the good things. Their prideful healing, their throughput. We'll look at the raids, we'll look at Mythic Plus, we'll look at some of the changes that are happening in 9.05, and maybe what should change. How can we change this community perception? Because honestly, I do feel that the community perception for Mistweavers is atrociously bad for no good reason, at least in Mythic Plus. Let's go and get started. So first of all, a small overview of the Mistweaver class and talents and the playstyle that I was going. So first of all, I was playing Fistweaving. And Fistweaving a lot of the times will be referred to when you go into melee and you're probably running Rising Mist and you're using Rising Sun Kick for extensions. This creates a very, how do I say it, a very efficient playstyle where mana will be less of an issue. And I feel like Fistweaving is the only playstyle right now that's actually interesting for a Mistweaver. Don't get me wrong, I used to main a Mistweaver. I used to play it so much at the start of BFA that I kind of completely got the ranged Mistweaver out of my system. I do not feel that the ranged Mistweaver is in any way interesting or fun to play. My personal opinion, I played this for like a month or like 2 months really hardcore. So Fistweaving honestly is the only thing that keeps me playing Mistweaver right now, and I'm really happy to see that Fistweaving is actually extremely viable and extremely optimal for a Mistweaver right now. Again, I think it's really, really fun. Now, the downside of this, you have to go into melee. And honestly, being in melee was more of an issue than I thought it would, because a lot of the times I wasn't aware of the frontal splashes or frontal attacks because I was playing ranged all the time, and sometimes it was really difficult to get into melee and get my Rising Sun Kicks, use my abilities, because I do have talents that require me to be in melee. I have, again, this is probably the most popular talent build for Mythic Plus, for Mistweavers right now, with Miswraps and Invoker Chi, the Red Crane. Red Crane requires you, and this is interesting part, and I'm gonna talk about this. This talent requires you to use things like Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, and Spinning Crane Kick in order to generate these charges that are gonna allow you to cast your Enveloping Mist more cheaply. And you get like 3 stacks. Now, you don't have to get 3 stacks before you're gonna use your Enveloping Mist. It's also gonna proc Enveloping Breath. While active, Yulon and Chi heal up to 6 nearby targets and Enveloping Breath when you cast Enveloping Mist. So all of a sudden, Enveloping Mist becomes like a go-to type of deal. But let's not go too much into it. What it means is that you need to be in melee and you need to cast your abilities. Target Palm does not directly give you these charges, but if you use a legendary like, for example, Ancient Teachings of the Monastery, which is your Fistweaving legendary, you can use your Target Palm, Blackout Kick, and Rising Sun Kick to kind of heal people. So there's different kind of like overlaps that you can already see. In order to proc this legendary, you also need to use Essence Font. Essence Font is also great because Essence Font, when you use it, the main portion of it, you see the hut that I have here, it's gonna double proc your mastery when you use your healing abilities. So you can see the synergies that Mistweaver already has in terms of fist weaving playstyle. There's a lot of overlap, and it makes it really interesting. Unfortunately, in Mythic Plus, not a lot of people will be using Ancient Teachings of the Monastery. That's why I have myself a tier build, Tier of Morning build, which you can see here. I'm using Tier of Morning, which makes a bunch of your abilities better, especially with the fact that your Enveloping Mist also heals allies with Renewing Mist. Your Renewing Mist is your bread and butter. You're gonna have a ton of Renewing Mist out there. The reason Tier of Morning is more popular is because it's more organized healing, it's more controlled healing. You're probably going to be using Tier of Morning in Mythic Plus, and you're probably going to be using Ancient Teachings of the Monastery in raid situations because your mana is going to be a lot bigger issue. Coincidentally, I have to mention that in order to get these legendaries, you need to do Torghast. And I actually managed to do Torghast at like 166 item level, level 8 or layer 8 or whatever you want to call it, with Mistweaver because Corrosive Dosage ability is actually broken. Mistweaver Monk, or Monk in general, has to be one of the best Torghast runners, probably alongside with a Druid, if you get a decent combination as well. Honestly, extremely strong Torghast. If there's one thing that Mistweaver is so overpowered, it is probably going to be Torghast. But this is my little overview of what I played and what I used as a Mistweaver in Mythic Plus context. How did these talents, legendaries, combine in my Mythic Plus experience? I have to say that the prideful healing for Mistweaver was extremely strong. It's one of the things that really surprised me. If you have your Red Crane available, Red Crane can pretty much solo prideful healing, even if you're severely undergeared. Like I mentioned, I was doing these keys at around 180 item level or something close to that. 190 at the end of the runs as well. And honestly, if you have Red Crane available, it's going to be pretty much GG. And I was really impressed by the healing that it was doing. Again, prideful healing, you need to make sure you hit the mob. And it was awkward, because on certain occasions I had like a 4 melee group and that was really painful. So if you are running as a fist-weaving Mistweaver Monk, you kind of want to have more range than melee, especially on these quaking weeks, because I was doing it during quaking. Outside of that, I was running Kyrian. Now, Kyrian is one of the most popular options in terms of Mythic Plus healing for Mistweaver. Night Fae is also in there, but Night Fae, it's definitely between Night Fae and Kyrian in Mythic Plus, and in raids it feels like Bone Tooth Brew from Necrolord seems to be the way to go. So generally speaking, you have a lot of options here. I was using Kyrian, and Kyrian is also another 2-minute cooldown that gives you a ton of mastery. And they kind of like, if you're really in a lot of trouble during Prideful, popping Kyrian, Vu, Weapons of Order alongside with Red Crane, you're pretty much one of the strongest healers for 25 or so seconds, because honestly the duration of Red Crane and Vu, Weapons of Order, is quite long, so you can pretty much carry the prideful healing. But what about everything else? The utility of Mistweaver is actually pretty solid. You have a lot of things like instant stun, which very few classes have. You as a monk provide that 5% physical buff, which in Mythic Plus is not that big of a deal because the meta seems to be going towards ranged or spellcaster classes, but still very solid if you look at, like, you know, your Mythic Plus composition. And in raids, it might be one of the ways to get invited because your raid might not have a monk in your group. Outside of that, you have a lot of ways to deal with CC. You have a lot of ways to deal with like Ring of Peace. Ring of Peace, certain weeks, is one of the biggest MVPs you can have, and honestly, it's what I'm trying to say, the utility is decent. It's not shabby. You cannot say Mistweaver has no utility, at least in Mythic Plus situations. Their DPS, on the other hand, I feel is on the lower side. I feel for the amount of effort that you put in as a Mistweaver trying to be in melee range, trying to optimize. Again, there's 2 different rotations in terms of stacking up your teachings on the Monastery, and that is basically how many Tiger Pumps you're gonna use. There's 2 different builds, one for HPS, one for DPS, but it doesn't really matter. Your DPS is not going to be groundbreaking. The amount of effort you're gonna put in is not really equal to the damage output you're gonna get, especially when you compare it to something like a Holy Paladin, which inevitably you're going to be compared because you're similar healer. You're a melee healer at this point, and there's only 2 healers like that. You're gonna be compared, and most of the time Holy Paladin might win. What I'm trying to say is this: Mistweaver healer, especially in a group that's poke, maybe not super organized, maybe people are taking unnecessary damage and things like that, I think Mistweaver is going to be extremely strong. Their mana constraints are pretty annoying, especially when shit hits the fan and you're kind of just throwing your enveloping mist everywhere. There's going to be issues. But I don't think it's that bad. Blizzard is going to reduce the mana cost of renewing mist and vivifies and things like that. The renewing mist reduction is really welcome because a lot of times you're going to be focusing on renewing mist a lot. But I do feel other healers still have mana issues. Like if you look at the Discipline Priest spamming Mind Blast is gonna have mana issues. If you look at Holy Priest with Flash of Concentration Legendary, you might have mana issues as well. So I don't think Mistweaver is the only healer that really suffers from this problem. I just feel like that if everything goes wrong, Mistweaver can really burn through that mana quite easily, and you have to play Fist Weaving build to make it kind of work, which I think is the biggest issue at this point. You have to use that Rising Mist, do those extensions or cheap extensions when compared to other builds where you don't have that. And I think that's the biggest issue with Mistweaver right now. You're kind of pigeonholed to that playstyle. But overall, changes are coming. Blizzard has approached this and they're trying to fix this, which is very, very interesting. But what about raiding? I feel raiding is where a lot of issues Mistweaver really faces. I feel that Mistweaver in Mythic Plus is actually one of the best healers to get KSM. I really truly believe that. As long as you disregard community perception, find your own group or push your own key, I think you can have one of the easiest times because throughput is really strong. And people who say that Mistweaver throughput is bad, let's look at some numbers in terms of raids. So this is actually Castle Natria Mythic Healer Breakdown Summary for 75%. So if you're playing your healer in any decent way, you might see similar numbers to this. Discipline Priest Spiritual is absolutely insanely broken in Mythic content. If you're playing with any competent Discipline Priest, they're probably going to leave you in the dust in terms of absorption. But after that, you kind of see that everyone's relatively equal in this situation. Mistweaver is not bottom. A lot of people seem to think that Mistweaver's throughput is like not comparable. It is very much comparable with almost every other healer in raid situations. That is not their problem. Their HPS is fine, but they don't have a strong niche. Especially when you compare the fact that, hey, Holy Paladin is a melee healer. Mistweaver is a melee healer. Holy Paladin can go do a substantial amount of damage, probably double, at least double the amount that Mistweaver Monk does. If you're running Ashen Hollow, you're probably not, like, it's just insane. So, Holy Paladin does more passive damage. Holy Paladin has damage reduction through your Devo Aura Mastery combination. And Holy Paladin's HPS throughput is very similar to Mistweaver Monk. How can Mistweaver Monk compare in raids when you're going to be compared to your closest rival, Holy Paladin, and Holy Paladin is better in almost every single way? Mistweaver needs some big class-defining changes in raid situations. This is probably where Mistweaver is the weakest at, because their HPS is good, but everything else does not define a reason to bring a Mistweaver Monk outside of the Monk's 5% physical damage buff that you might get from a Brewmaster or probably Windwalker Monk, considering that they're so meta right now. So that's where the problem lies. This is what Mistweavers need to, or Blizzard needs to approach. How are they going to give more class-defining abilities to Mistweaver in order to bring them to these world-first races? If you're not doing entry or like top-end mythic rating, or you're not looking to race or get the world 100 or whatever, honestly, Mistweaver is going to be more than fine in your race situations. Mistweaver is one of the best healers in Sun King, so you got at least that. Sun King's single target healing is insanely strong. And like I mentioned before, in terms of the legendaries for Mistweavers, you'll notice that in here, Mythic Plus, difficulty ranging from 16 to 22 keys, there are Mistweavers who are doing plus 22 keys, keep that in mind. A lot of the times, Tier Morning is going to be your #1 choice, and in raid situations, you'll notice that for mythic raiding, or at least raiding as a Mistweaver, a lot of the times Ancient Teacher Monastery is going to be the way to go. So there is 2 different legends that you need to start getting or try to get if you want to really kind of progress as Mistweaver. The summary of the video is this: I think Mistweavers are more than capable in Mythic Plus situations, and I think anyone who says that Mistweaver cannot do or does not have enough HPS to do a Mythic Plus key is actually just out of their mind. I think Mistweaver is one of my favorite, if not one of the best, healers to get Keystone Masters, because they're not cooldown dependent, they have really strong single target healing, they can carry Prideful Healing with their cooldowns, and honestly just relatively a fun healer to play. They do have mana issues, but hopefully they're going to be fixed in the next patch. Now, if you're a Mistweaver who's looking to raid high-end mythic raid bosses, I think it's going to be another kind of conversation. I don't think Mistweavers bring a whole lot when you compare it to their counterpart, Holy Paladin. I think Mistweavers need some class-defining abilities, and I don't think that's gonna come. I think the earliest that's going to be introduced is going to be 9.1, if that's even going to be introduced. So I'm not sure what Blizzard is gonna do about that. Don't get discouraged. Mistweaver is more than capable of producing the same numbers or HPS numbers as every other healer. That their throughput is not like 40% lower like so many other people seem to think. So guys, I know I got a little bit passionate about this because I am annoyed about how people view Mistweavers. I think Mistweavers have issues, but I think Mistweavers are capable of doing really high keys and really high-end mythic raiding under the right circumstances. Let me know how you feel about this, and honestly guys, if you like this kind of video, subscribe and like the content. Thank you, and I'll see you in my next video.